Good evening and welcome to tonight's edition of United Soccer FC. My name is Harry. With me tonight is Chris Walker, who hails from Fellweather Podcast and also Seek and Strike Podcast, which is more New Mexico United. But Fairweather Pod is San Diego. And Mr. Alan Underwood, my favorite band teacher of all time, from Fairweather Podcast as well. And he also does the Orange and Black Soccer Cast, which is OCs. Welcome, gentlemen. How are you guys doing?
Fantastic.
Doing great.
And the reason why you're my favorite band teacher is because I can't read music and I have zero rhythm ability at all. So,
well, so do some of my students. So it's good to be here. Fun intro. Enjoyed it. Kind of sets. I feel like I'm in Texas now. I feel like I've transitioned from San Diego to Texas.
Well, it's that way, and then you got Chris is in New Mexico still, right?
That's right. You know, just not quite humid like San Antonio, and never too hot like San Diego.
I will say, Chris, because I knew we were going to be doing a podcast tonight. I was kind of wishing you were here at the house because tonight Monica cooked short ribs.
Oh,
and I was like, Chris would have enjoyed this one. Not that you didn't enjoy the enchiladas, but
what I enjoy. Yeah, I was gonna say I enjoyed the damn enchiladas too.
And the short ribs were good.
Well, hey, you know what though? I mean, on a separate note, I mean, our clubs will see each other enough times that I just might might be flying into San Antonio. You never know.
Short ribs, like I said here, that's those are kind of special, vacation type meals, just because not the cheapest meat to get, but every once in a while,
it's true.
They are good here. But tonight we're going to kind of discuss, the San Diego Loyal. Look at the history, which obviously is just 1 year, and it was a unique year, you could say, at that. And then kind of, I want to kind of touch base on the game day, because I hope SAFC is one that gets to maybe travel to San Diego at some point, because that is a trip that my wife will go on. So
y'all not going to know what to do when you get to the other side of America.
We've been to San Diego. That's why she's like, oh, San Diego's coming to town. We can go there. So it's always, hey, where do we want to go on vacation? San Diego. I was like, So then we'll kind of talk a little bit about the roster moves, new additions. There's a former San Antonio FC player that made the move over, which I'm excited to see what he'll look like after after not playing last year. And you got my favorite player that's not on SAFC, Mr. Blake. And then we'll kind of maybe talk a little bit about the West, because I think most people would agree it's the toughest division. Although I guess we got to kind of see how many teams make the playoffs. I would assume 4, if there are 4 groups, and if they have it very similar to last year, the top 4, play each other for that here. And then kind of final thoughts here. So we'll kick it off here to start off here with it here. So San Diego was fortunate enough to play 2 home games before COVID, or not 2 home games, 2 games before COVID hit. They had the home opener against the Lights, and then they followed that up with a road game in Tacoma. Right when COVID was hitting, I think if memory serves me at the time, I think there was questions if the game was going to be played or not, and they ended up playing it, which I think was the last game that they did play. So, Alan, since you're there, how was the home opener against the Lights? I know it's only 1 game, and that's a year ago almost to the date, right? I think we're talking about that.
Yeah, it was quite a unique environment because obviously everything's new, so like everything's exciting. The march into the stadium, how they have the stadium set up is they have the fans there and the teams had to walk by, so you're a little bit heckling of the Las Vegas players, lots of energy given to your home team players. The stadium itself is in a really cool area because there's a landing above it. They had some food trucks up there, and then you kind of walk into this bowl, and I mean, it was packed. The game was not very entertaining. It was a tough game to watch.
1-1.
Yeah, it was a 1-1. It was, a goal of the year for Vegas to start, and just a chippy goal for us to tie it up. But it was a little bit, you can tell it was people trying to figure out how things are working. But the energy there was really good. I got blisters on my hands from playing the bass drum all night. It was a really cool environment. And I know that the team and the local supporters group were like, man, if we could have just had that first year to iron things out. And I think by the end of the season, it could have been something even more special.
So, not obviously play resumes, but fans aren't able to attend. And obviously everybody was locked down, watching at home and stuff like that. How was the interaction with the with the loyal fan base, with it being the first year? Obviously you couldn't do in game, but how was that first year going through the COVID year for that?
It was, I think there was obviously mostly bad, as in there's not a huge supporters culture established. So there's not these like traditions of watch alongs, but there's a couple of different groups around town that tried to do some watch along parties and tried to engage fans as much as they could. The locals moved a little bit more online. They opened a Discord because of this, and maybe that was where they were going in the originally, but it kind of forced them to kind of pivot. And then the team itself was really open. Like, we as a podcast were like, hey, can we get these 3 players? And they're like, yep. So they were, especially in between the games, that time where there wasn't really anything happening. I mean, we interviewed so many players and coaches, and it was like they just wanted to engage as much as possible. And so we really got a chance to know our players, I think, in a way that we probably wouldn't have otherwise, which made kind of the arc of the season so difficult, because you're like super invested in these players that you feel like they've been around for a while. So when they're not performing, it sucks even more. And then kind of how the season ended, you're riding this really big high. San Diego's marching to the playoffs. Like, the Padres are going to make the playoffs. The Loyal going to make the playoffs. Like, everything's going well. And then they just couldn't dig themselves out of the hole. And then obviously the season ended the way it did, which is a proud moment for the club, and it's a proud moment for the supporters. But for the actual game on the pitch, it was so heart-wrenching, especially when you played so well against one of the best teams in the league. Like, you're beating the crap out of them.
Yeah, it was a one-sided game that first half.
And you just walked off, and it felt like I was lucky enough to be in the stands there as a media member for that game, and it was one of the weirdest feelings in my life at a sporting event, because you just don't know like how to react, and you're walking away and you're like talking to the owner of the team, like, what just happened? They're like, hey, we're figuring it out. We have nothing to say to the press yet, but we're figuring out what happened. There might have been some audio that we're collecting, but essentially this happened. And I think it was a proud moment for the supporters to be able to back the team up and kind of come together in a way that maybe a first year team probably doesn't feel that like familiar and like as a family. But I do think it really kind of solidified this is what the team's identity is, and that's something that the supporters can get behind really early. I think it really solidified that this is what San Diego is going to represent in the league.
And that's why I think the biggest impact was and wasn't on the pitch, because SB Nation's Outsports moment of the year was the SD Loyal forfeit match over the gay slur to Colin Martin. And this, I don't think a lot of people who don't follow USL very closely missed that this was basically a second time in a week period, because there was a incident in Los Angeles with Los Dos that I think was discovered post-match. And, I remember Landon Donovan saying, hey, if he would have known about it during the match, they would have walked off. And I think, my reaction was like, okay, it's easy to say that. And then when the impact happened, when the incident happened against Rising, he backed it up. He walked off the team. He and the team walked off and support of Mr. Martin and along those lines here. So I'll ask you here, Chris. Here, how much of an impact do you really think that Landon Donovan and the Loyal have had on the LGBTQ community and within sports by that actions? Just for the fact that it was a national news story, all the major sports, and I think even worldwide, seeing soccer stories there. How much of an impact do you think that has had on that? You're on mute, Chris.
Dang, look at that. You better edit that out. Hey, so no, I think that it had.
It's not edited, man. I'm lazy, dude. I hit download and upload.
Hey, that's good. That's good. That's good. Just have your listeners. They gotta tweet you at the point that they hear this, and then you're gonna give them a prize. Okay, so back to what your question was. I honestly think that it had a big impact because it wasn't just talk. I mean, but let's go a little bit deeper, maybe, right? Let's say the previous week something happened, but maybe like that could have come up. But you know what it could be like is like, okay, I was wronged. I'm on this team, but wait, I don't want to shake the boat, right? So essentially the player could have said something, but maybe just didn't know how much weight hey, if something goes down, we want to know about it, because a lot of the times I think about it, like, me being like a Black man, like, if I'm in an environment that I don't really know if someone's really going to have my back, like I might be likely to just like kind of let the event happen and then maybe say something later when we're off the pitch. But then what that did is that told Landon, like, okay, wait, no, like if I knew about that, we would have did something then. So that really kind of instilled within that player who said something like, no, we for sure are going to do something. So then obviously the next week when that thing happens, someone speaks up. And then again, like you can see, okay, hey, you know what? Our team, our gaffer, they're about it. So I think that it had impact on the community because it showed that at the end of the day, what was more important were the people that he was riding with, on that team or anyone in the organization versus, well, we still need to play this game because we're later in the season and it has implications on postseason. And let's figure out something we can do after. And I like the fact that he made it the only thing that was important. And then they walked off and that was that. And they never came back and said, oh man, I really wish we would have not done that because we won the playoffs. Not everyone surrounding it was like, oh, you guys should have just played and got to the playoffs and then you could have. But it's like they did something and they never looked back or second guessed it. And I think that makes an impact because there's nothing like being in an underrepresented community and have folks say what they would do, but then never seeing any action come from it in a live situation. It's too diplomatic.
Your thoughts on it, Alan?
Yeah, I think the biggest test of this is going to be when USL announces some rule changes and the stuff that's going to come out of that committee. I think that's going to show how much of an impact this really had. If it's just kind of platitudes and more of the same, then I don't think that action had a lasting impact. It was like an impact at the time and got people talking about it. But then if we're going to go back to the status quo, then what did that really do? It riled some people up and then that's about it. We let stuff go. But I think if this committee from the USL can come out and enforce some stronger penalties for this type of behavior on the pitch, I think that it was well worth it to give up a playoff spot to have lasting impact in the game, that we can see this year after year after year of less tolerance of this type of behavior in the USL. I think that would be like, yeah, that was well worth it. Those 3 points in the playoffs were well worth it. That next generation's Black and LGBTQ and even some of our Islamic brothers and sisters who deal with that kind of stuff in sport, with especially other females with a hijab. I think if we can make some of those changes long term, for sure, well worth it.
And I know, here in San Antonio a couple of years ago, there was a spitting incident against one of the San Antonio players who was African American. I know we've battled the P chant or P word chant here. So it's something that not only affected San Diego and affected Phoenix, because I know their fan base was just as just talking in general, their fan base was upset just as much as everybody else over it. We'll say it's something that I do think that, like you, I want to see how far it goes. And I guess that's going to be my next question to you, Chris, is as fans, how can we help build on that? Obviously, the league is going to set forth some additional rules and penalties along those lines. But, as a fan base, as podcasters, as, supporters of 3 teams, 4 teams, in the league, especially in the West, what can we do to help build on the momentum that happened at the end of last year?
Well, I mean, I think one thing we can't do is we can't be performative. I mean, some things were done last year that this year I would think like, okay, we're past that point, right? Like, because then it just becomes this formula thing. It's like, okay, well, these are all acceptable ways to protest this moment because they did it last season. So let's just do these things. These are safe things to do. People were okay with these things. I think that it's going to be based on what the moment is and what feels right to do. And I think that typically is always the right way to go. But when you start trying to do things to appease certain groups and like not rock any boats, is typically when what you're doing is kind of seen as unauthentic.
Right.
Like, honestly, to be honest with you, like, I think that when some of those moments happen, like, it's like, okay, you're waiting for the club to do something. And if the club doesn't do something because maybe they're like, oh, we're gonna put out a special statement or something. To me, like, that's where I would imagine supporters would be like, okay, we're gonna do something. If the club's not going to do anything on the spot, and they're just going to let this ride and then try to come out later with a statement, then, it's going to be up to the supporters. Like, do you want to stay there and still watch that, or do you want to walk out? Because, I mean, honestly, I would walk out personally. Pods, it's going to be like, we're doing team coverage this week, or we're not. I mean, it's going to, like I said, I don't want to say what anyone should do. It's not what I'm trying to say. To match the statement that I gave initially, but I think you got to do what ultimately feels right. And I think sometimes, even as pods, we could kind of coordinate to do the same thing sometimes and unify. And in some instances, that's fine. But again, like, sometimes you got to go outside the norm. You know what I mean? So that's what I would have to say.
Your thoughts on it, Alan?
No, I do think that it's like when we say we demand stuff from our teams, I think we need to be real. And when it's time to step up and say, like, and really call our teams out, I think it's our job to do that. If we're gonna say that these things matter to us, they have to matter to us all the time. I think that, it's easier for us in San Diego with the local is that it's brand new, so you can establish some of those things right away. Like, we heard the P chant once, and people like immediately were like, nope, get out, like, gotta leave, gotta go. And you can do that when it's brand new,
right, because
you're establishing those ground rules. If it's like part of the things that existed beforehand and you try to change it afterwards, it's much harder to. But I mean, LAFC is another example of a group that eliminated it because they're like, if you want to be here, you can't do that. And they had zero tolerance. And they just said, if we hear you, you're done. You're kicked out. Bye. See ya. And I think we need to do a little bit more of that, and then be willing to be honest and, admit when we don't do things well, but then also hold our teams accountable. If you notice that your front office and your coaching staff is all one, is not very diverse, then you need to call it out and you need to hold them like as much accountable as you can. I think that there's things that we can do. And then there's other things that we realize that we can only push so far. And I think Chris is right. Like if it gets to a point where this team doesn't represent you anymore, it's like, hey, I love this, but this is not for me anymore. And I'm going to go do something different.
Back,
yeah.
So let's try to move to a more, not saying that's not positive, but the whole incident was, I hate to say it, an ugly incident in the game. But game day at Torero Stadium, and hopefully I pronounced that correctly. And I know it's only one game, but generally what's kind of the pregame, postgame, places to go, like where the supporters go and stuff like that. Like here at Toyota Field, there's a, tailgate everybody goes to. I know Phoenix used to, now they've changed place, or pardon me, El Paso, it's a local bar a little bit away. What's kind of the game day, for the Loyal?
So the locals have a tailgate, but TAIL gate or TAIL. Yeah. Because it's still on a university campus. So there's like a specific area you have to get wristbanded and ID'd and because they're like, we want to have that experience, but because it's a college campus, there's some restrictions. So everyone's like, all right, if it means I have to buy a drink and buy some food, it's not like a traditional tailgate, but at least it's cheap and it's good food because it's like local taco truck, the guy out there with the grill, like no joke, delicious.
And but is it Lucha tacos?
No, it's better.
Lucha Libre tacos.
It's better. And so it's like, it's not real tailgating where you can bring a beer and drink, but it's like, I'm going to buy a 6-pack at the shop. I might spend, it's San Diego, so you're going to get some like craft beer. It's about that same price and it's fine. Around town, like USD is real close to Pacific Beach. So if you're visiting, like you can pretty much go to any area of San Diego and still make it to the game pretty easily. It's right off the freeway. It's right by SeaWorld, if you know the area.
Yeah, I've been there.
Yeah, so it's right by SeaWorld. You got Pacific Beach, so it's like a younger, hipper crowd. Like the bro scene's kind of there. You can go further north in like Encinitas, even as like a part of the day, because it's probably going to be a night game. Go up a little bit north, a little bit further north. It's a little bit more hoity-toity.
So where you live?
No, I live in City Heights. I live like, it is cool dense here. Cool, it's like one of the denser areas of San Diego. My house is 800 square feet on a 1,500 square foot lot. I do not live fancy.
Wow. Our first house was about that size. Yes.
I mean, if you're going to make a day of it, you can pretty much do anything you want and still get to USD in plenty of time. Tons of breweries, real local. You can go to the beach and hang out during the day. Like, this is a traveling fan's paradise during the summer months. Like, just come and hang out, spend the day, go watch some soccer at night. You're going to want to probably party beforehand and Uber up, but it's like right into campus. It's an easy drop off and return. It's a little bit hilly. So if, make sure they're dropping you off right at the stadium. But I mean, it's a beautiful stadium. It's gorgeous view. It seats
6,100.
Yeah, and I mean, you get a good crowd in there, and it feels you're really close to the pitch. It's a great place to watch a match. We were really excited to host a lot of folks coming out that first year because we really wanted to build that relationship and build those connections to other supporters groups. But yeah, it's a cool. Like pretty much anything you want to do is real close to USD. Down Old Town San Diego. You can go even to Chula Vista, which is like a half an hour south, and get some Tijuana street tacos before like some tacos El Gordo, which has been in the news lately around here. So there's plenty to do. Good food, good beer, good hang, good beaches.
And look, let me say this. Let me add to Alan's thing. You come into town, chances are you're a Manchester United fan. So you can go to Shakespeare's pub the next day on Sunday and you could, have some great food. I went there and I mean, it was like fish and chips, like all the English things you would like. So I mean, Alan knows this too. I mean, he's a Mank too, so it's cool.
Yeah, AJ's a Man City fan, and this year I adopted Accrington Stanley as my team, a League One team that's pushing up. I got to keep with the lower divisions.
You and Dylan can get after that.
Just it's
him and Luton.
I can watch. I watch it, but the EPL, just they're big clubs. I'm like, I think it's like following the NFL. If it's typically passed down from generation to generation, or you fall in love because you happen to catch a special moment. For it here, how my son fell in love with Man City, I have no clue. But
we all make mistakes.
Yeah, that's his choice, not mine. For that here. So roster news. We'll start with the biggest losses to the club. The one that kind of stood out to me was Ruben, who went to Real Salt Lake. But what's some of the biggest shoes that you guys are going to have to fill this year? Coming into 2021.
He's for sure one of them. I would put Miguel Berry in that boat as well. He was a loanee from Columbus. He went to USD, so he was kind of like a local boy, really talented. But I think kind of the biggest question mark was losing John Kempen. I think is a big loss. Yeah, he kept us in games like no one's business. It was like Saint John Kempen. They made like those candles, pictures of him. He was really well loved as a person, and was a hell of a goalkeeper. And we all know watching USL matches that if your goalkeeper's good, you can beat any team on any given day. Yeah, and he was that guy for us last season. So it was who is going to step into those shoes. And they brought in Trey Muse on loan from Tacoma, who's a really good goalkeeper. Maybe not a John Kempen, so we'll see how well we do.
Quality though, especially with the shitty team that he had last year, or the shitty defense.
Correct, and that's why I think a lot of people get kind of hard on him is that you're playing for Tacoma, you're not playing with the three best center backs in the league. You're playing with some kids who are going to get embarrassed by guys who are just going to be better. So that's kind of the big question mark is will Muse and Guerrero, who's the second keeper, he played some games last season as well, will they develop into being able to produce something close to Kempen?
And I will say this, just from our experience last year, because he is on loan from the Sounders. And I know you have the young kid that I think earned his spot from a walk-on, right? With the tryouts, I think is how he was discovered, right? If I remember reading that correctly. You might have that third goalkeeper somewhere, just because if injuries happen with the Sounders, they may call him back. So,
yeah, they signed a 22-year-old 6'6" kid, a local guy. So they just announced that a couple days ago. I was like 6'6", geez. And they showed a picture of him jumping. I'm like, he doesn't even have to jump. Like, why is he jumping? Like, if he has to jump to catch the ball, it's going over the bar. Go well over the bar. Come on.
For you, Chris, who anybody that Alan didn't mention as far as the big misses?
Ooh, you're asking as far as like folks that are gone that are like
right from last year's club.
I mean, if you consider you guys kind of talked about it, Rubin is huge. No, not anyone for me in particular. I mean, maybe to a Henny, right? That could probably be someone that to me is a miss, just the speed up front, for the most part. But with Herzog, it's cool. I guess it's just kind of like it's like the difference between like a panther and a gazelle, right? Like they're both fast, but one's just ridiculously fast, and the other one's like kind of fast, but we're used to him. You know what I'm saying? So having Herzog out there, like huge addition, I believe, but he's not like necessarily this new creature to the USL. The West knows
who he is.
You know what
Which
I'm saying?
is a good thing.
Atuahane was a different thing just because of where he came out of.
So I know we're kind of moving on to the new additions, and this is one where I'm kind of interested to see where or how Ebiakon fits, with the Loyal, because with SAFC in 2019, he played mainly on left back, but he also played center back as well here. And this is from the 2019, media guide by SAFC, or probably the 2020 media guide. He had 33 games played. I think it was 34 for the year. 2,970 minutes, which was second on the team. And what I found interesting is he led SAFC in duels with 431 and duels won at 278. Had 21 blocks, 47 interceptions, 54 tackles won, and aerial duels won of 82. And his duels were second in the league, first in the West, but despite being just the 14th most duels in USL Championship as a league. So he made a couple of young mistakes. I think there was a own goal once or twice, which wasn't his fault. But unfortunately, he was the unlucky defender that was left to dry, and unfortunately, the ball went in. But last year, he didn't play. He was on the roster, but he never made it over. I think he unfortunately was caught up in some visa issues last year is the reports that we heard, but haven't been able to confirm that, but which makes sense why he wasn't even here for picture day for that here. But thoughts on where Ebby fits in with the Loyal? We'll go with you, Alan.
I think based on some of their current signings, I think it just gives you some depth and some chance to rotate some players in without losing a ton of talent. I think looking at last year, when Joe Greenspan goes down, you're really living on a edge of you lose one more defender, and it's like all of a sudden you're Liverpool. But I think looking at who they signed, bringing in TV from Pittsburgh, bringing back the other three guys on that 4-man, sometime 3-man back line, I think it just gives you a little bit more depth. It gives you a few more options as far as, Elijah Martin is great on that left wing, but he's not the tallest guy. So maybe there's some matchups there that you can put him on for some height. You can put him on when you're maybe going a little bit more defensive. Elijah Martin likes to get up the field a little bit more. So I think it gives you some depth. I think it gives you some options tactically. And I think it gives you, you can never have that, that third center back, that second left back or wing back guy is going to be really important when you're playing 32 games this season. With Sal Zizzo, we saw him get injured a little bit last year as well. He's not going to play. I don't think he's going to play a full season. So you're looking at rotating those guys in, and that just gives you a solid defender, a guy you can count on and on back line.
Your thoughts, Chris, on Ebiakon?
I don't have any thoughts on it other than I'm going to be doing a lot of just surfing the internet on him. So
he's, like I said here, he was the SAFC defense that year was poor. It let him down a lot. But I think most out of the defenders that came back, he was one of the ones that did. He was drafted third round by the Fire, but he signed with us and played with us. So I'm a huge Ebby fan. Like I said here, I wish he was still here. It would have been interesting to see what he would have done last year. In San Antonio, but unfortunately, just didn't work out for him. The other big name, I know you guys have talked about Herzog for that here, and I know this listening to the Reno podcast, RIP Reno, but his game day smoothies with friends. So I'm hoping he continues that tradition because I think it's kind of unique and cool, to be able to do. So is there a go-to smoothie bar, Mr. Underwood, that you would suggest, if you had a Herzog's ear?
I don't drink smoothies very often, so I have no input. Like, do I look like a guy who enjoys a smoothie?
Hell yeah, a beer smoothie.
I probably. I mean, I guess. I mean,
well, I'm assuming there has to be some there, and like I said here, that's why
right. I mean, go to a fruiteria.
This guy puts his beer in a blender with ice and blends it.
Yeah, there's nothing wrong with that.
Shakes.
Beer smoothie.
I don't think Herzog is going to be doing those, at least during in season. Hopefully not.
I mean, he's been like up. There's been like Dr. Pepper references flying around lately. He's already like endeared himself to the fan base here.
He's
like
a fan favorite wherever he goes.
Oh, yeah.
It's great. It feels like he's been on the team forever because it was announced like 14 months ago because we're in COVID time and every month is like 3 months. We feel like he's already played a season. So yeah, I'm sure he'll find plenty of smoothie places to enjoy.
Here's a thing we love about Herzog, right? This is what Alan didn't want to say this. I'll say it though. This is the thing we like about him. Like when he was at Reno, he had Phoenix's number. I mean, you might remember the incident on the pitch, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so to come to San Diego, where a team has already been whooping up on Phoenix as it was, right? Like, because they were doing that. They have done that.
You did in one game, yes.
Well, they were in the lead twice. But I mean, like, so what it looks like is like Herzog comes and he can kind of continue his havoc. And I look forward to those San Diego Phoenix matches just because of that.
The other one is, now I'm happy with our midfield. Don't get me wrong. And I don't, retrospect, I don't know if Mr. Jack Blake would have fit, SAFC, but he is one of the guys that I wish would have came to, San Antonio. And I'm assuming, Chris, if New Mexico had the opportunity to get Mr. Blake, you wouldn't have turned him away.
Well, we thought we were getting him, but then we got Ilya Illich instead, so that was okay.
So you're saying it's an upgrade? Is that what I'm hearing?
That's right.
So obviously this question will go to Alan then. So how does Mr. Blake impact the Loyal this year?
So on Fairweather last night, this was my most intriguing signing as far as where he's going to fit in with the team. If you look at, like, you kind of can figure out where Guido's going to fit. Corey Herzog, you're not going to put him anywhere, but kind of a guy who's going to be playing in the box. It'll be interesting to me to see what kind of role Jack Blake fills in. But I do think he's going to get a little bit further forward and allow Charlie Adams and Colin Martin to sit a little bit further back. So Colin Martin was forced to play a little bit higher and I think maybe put out of his comfort zone a little bit. And so maybe Jack Blake allows him to sit further back and kind of be the guy at the top of the box as opposed to that, second guy in or third guy in. But I really do like this Jack Blake signing. I think it opens up a lot of tactical possibilities in the midfield. And it gives us strength in an area that was a question mark for parts of the season last year. It really, I think, solidifies kind of a midfield three with him, Blake, Adams, and Martin as a really solid midfield three that you can count on to be both defensive and offensive minded. I was really stoked. I thought he would be a guy that we would target for our first year. It would be a really good guy to bring in for a first year. He's been around. He's a leader. He's a winner. So I was hoping we would bring him in as kind of that first year guy, but that ended up being kind of more like Charlie Adams. So I am very excited to see where he ends up playing and his role in this team as well. I'm curious.
I think everybody was shocked when he re-signed with Real Monarchs last year because, I didn't see it. I thought, because you heard rumors that Real Monarchs were going to be flipping the switch to more of a two-team setup, but they kept him and his leadership here. So this is kind of an open-ended question here. There's two of them here. There's the one who is the one player to watch for San Diego Loyal. So, maybe, more the media-driven guy, but, for here. So who is your one player to watch? And we'll start with you, Chris, here for the Loyal that you think will be a great indicator of the Loyal success.
I mean, I'm going to say Ben Spencer turns up a little bit. Second season signing with San Diego. His whole story seasons prior, when he was with Phoenix Rising. Before that, he was with, FC Tucson. Obviously, he was just like, he's really one of those guys that comes in and kind of impacts a game in such a way. And I saw it when he played with Phoenix and he came in, as well. And I think that he's your sort of player that might be a sleeper. You might be really clamoring towards like Herzog, but I mean, and Guido, but Spencer's going to turn up. You know what I mean? And I think that, he has this his bit of leadership that he's got, as well as just, his sort of morale and rallying the troops. And I think that Spencer's going to make an impact. That's kind of what I'm going with.
What about you, Alan?
I am definitely going to go with San Diego's success is going to be determined mostly by Alejandro Guido's success. I think when you talk about Rubin, everyone's like, oh, Rubin. But if you watch a lot of the matches, the engine that gets San Diego going at the end of last season, and I think really impacted their ability to score goals and be an offensive team and be a possession team with Guido. I think he's going to be the guy to watch. If he's having a good game, the people around him are going to be those guys scoring hat tricks, and maybe he gets a little bit overlooked. But I think that's the guy you watch to see San Diego's success. If he's getting frustrated, I think San Diego is probably going to feel more frustrated. But when you watch some of those last end of the season games, Guido is that key to unlocking everything ahead of him.
So switching to the division, I think most people think that 4 from each division is going to make the playoffs, because last year they ran with 8. And I think they go very similar just because it makes it easier, unless you do the 10 and give the first, the group winners that bye on each side for that here, which would be interesting. But I think it'll be 4 seems to be the common theme of it here. So Loyal is in with Sac Republic. RIP MLS Sac Republic. So that's going to be a story. Oakland Roots, Orange County SC, Phoenix Rising, your frenemy. And then a couple that are, 3 that you're kind of not sure. Tacoma and Los Dos have the history. Some years they're decent, some years, they're poor. And then there's the Lights, which, maybe LAFC 2, maybe not, we're 2 months away from the season starting, and I don't think people still know. So, what's going on there. So, thoughts on the division? We'll start with you, Chris, with the West.
Well, I mean, first off, the fact of the matter is the same thing as last year. When it comes down to it, like, when you can really kind of look at the season and then the way the playoffs went, it's the same sort of thing. What would you like to know specifically about it? Like, who do I think is like going to be the top 4? Is that
just your thoughts? Just your initial thoughts of it. What's your view? Because it's hard to give predictions now, just because rosters aren't set.
Right.
I thought about doing, hey, this is who I think, but I can't even do that with San Antonio because they got 3 defenders. And, the midfield looks good. Forwards, 2, 3, so you think they're set. But until you get that defense, which,
right.
They've already said, hey, they're in communication with MLS teams and waiting for MLS along those lines. So, if they're getting MLS quality players, you figure it's
right.
going to be quality depth. But until that's done, it's hard to really go. So, to me, it's one of those, I think most people agree it's the toughest division out of all of them. For that, I think the East is probably the other one that's, and I don't think it's that close. But, to me, I think there's five five teams for 4 spots. You know,
I think that they're calling it the Pacific, right? I think it's strong. I think it's strong. I think Oakland comes in. I mean, I know that there's this sort of thought that, hey, a team coming from NISA over, into the USL is going to be like, they're not going to be as good as they were before. But I mean, this is not necessarily that NISA team. This is like that team with like USL like quality on it.
They're bringing some good names in.
Yeah, they just signed Blackwood from St. Louis. Like they're bringing some dudes in.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, I wouldn't doubt if they didn't, just sign more players from teams that are dead like that. You know what I'm saying? So I think that Oakland's good. San Diego exceptionally set up, especially in their second season, to have players that they do have. Usually that takes, from my experience in New Mexico, at least clubs like 3 to 4 years before they really get, some players like that can do something. So I think that that's huge. Orange County obviously looks pretty stacked with their sort of setup. Definitely a reunion happening there from Reno 2018.
I question the defense a little bit, at least right now with Orange County, though. I think they flipped from where they were more defensive to where I think they got 5 forwards, 6 forwards. I've lost count of how many forwards that they actually have.
They're trying to run it up. That's why. But that doesn't win a game. I think that
I don't know. Phoenix has played that game for a while, and regular season it holds up.
I think that there are more teams that you have to consider a threat. I think last season we thought, okay, Phoenix is really stacked. They're obviously dropping money, and they're going to have a really good shot at winning it all, right? This year, I don't know if that's the case as much, because I think that other people are coming up and playing the same game. I mean, San Diego, again, like I said, late season, added a bunch of players. I mean, what did the USL said? Oh, they're kind of El Pasoing.
El Paso's that sneaky good team, though.
But they sign players mid-season, change it up when they need to. So, I mean, I think that's what San Diego did. They brought in some players at a key time.
Your thoughts, Alan?
Yeah, I think your coast, your Atlantic and Pacific are your 2 stronger divisions. As a neutral, that Eastern Conference Atlantic division is going to be real fun to watch, because I think that the same thing you said for the Pacific is there's kind of 5 teams vying for 4 spots, and it's going to get real ugly into the last couple of games of the season, which is going to be fun. And as a mountain division follower, I think you're going to have that same kind of fun in the Pacific of like, suckers, right? You're going to watch the Pacific teams beat the snot out of each other. And it might give you some advantage where into the end of the season where you might have something locked up that you can rest some guys and rotate some guys. I think the Pacific is stacked. I think not that the mountain is easy. It is not
I have
easy.
A different view on that.
But
you're
also not going to be tested. You're also not going to have that week in, week out, like playoff into the last part of the playoffs, unless they set up the season so it's like you're playing El Paso and you're fighting for that top spot, or you're playing New Mexico and you're fighting for that top spot and going to the last couple of weeks. That's going to be, I think, in the mountain, it's going to be the fight for the top seed. For the Pacific, it's going to be the fight for that 4 seed.
Look at the way that they did Loyal last year. I mean, like Orange County and Phoenix, those matches were like, that was like the last part of the season. And, it was kind of a godsend for San Diego to have been added key pieces in and then just been able to really rally, because if they didn't have those players they added, I don't think it would have been that way.
So here's where I have kind of a different take a little bit here. And this is going to be a question that I have for you guys, but you guys are going to play 4 out of division games. Most likely will be 2 at home, 2 away. In the mountain, you're playing 8 out of division games. So to me, you could still be playing Phoenix. You could still be playing the Loyal. You could still, or you could be playing Vegas. That's where I'm gonna find it's a little bit interesting on how they pull up, how they develop the schedule. Because I think SAFC took the easy way out last year, and I think it bit them in the butt, a little bit in the playoffs. Although, we'll leave that alone right now. But by playing Austin Bold, by playing RGV, those extra matches, and I think they played Real Monarchs, and I forget, they played only one other out of group match. So it was one where they played the teams that they know, and the teams knew them, which you could argue one way or another. But with teams playing each other 4 times, I'm hoping that SAFC, New Mexico aren't going to schedule El Paso for a 5th time, or RGV for a 5th time, as an example, and going to be going more to the other divisions, which also will include the East. That has also been announced, or at least hinted at, that
you can definitely see you can play a San Antonio Tulsa match super easy,
right?
Or OKC match super easy. Now that's West against East, and that's just adds to the fun.
Pseudo East, though. It's not true East.
But I think they're going to be looking at more. Like, I've already heard rumors that there is a Western team that's going to be going to Pittsburgh. So I think there is going to, and I think it's something that USL wants this year, because one of the biggest complaints that we as fans, and I'm assuming when they've done their fan surveys, is it's 2 separate leagues. By bunching up into these divisions, where you could have these 4 out of division games where you play, let's say, one East home and away, one East team home, one East team away, and then another team in the West that's in the Mountain Division, as an example. To me, those extra games, who you're playing, I think will be very interesting, especially in the tough division of the Pacific. Are teams loading up, or are they playing RGV as an example? Because somebody's got to play them. They will, they have 8 games that they've got to schedule. So that's the part of the schedule that I'm interested in kind of seeing is, and I know in NFL, we talk about the strength of schedule. I think that may be more of a discussion in USL that I think most people are thinking this year.
Yeah, I mean, that is, and I think that's the interesting twist with that 17 division, because the other divisions don't have as much of that wild card, and that's a great point. You can pull Tacoma and Sacramento, and you might get an off year for Sacramento, and you're like, great, I thought I was going to get a tough team to play, and they might be off that week or whatever. You get them at home instead of away. Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's going to be. I am probably not going to pay as much attention to the Central at all. But I am going to have heart attacks every Pacific Division game. I think it's just going to feel, doesn't matter who wins, you're going to feel gross about it, right? It's like you're watching some of the Orange County Phoenix matches. You're like, can both teams lose? Or you watch Orange County go into Vegas. Orange County going into Vegas, and you're like, oh, they're gonna beat them. And then Vegas wins, but then you're like, great, but now Vegas beating them, and you're just like, oh, yeah. Every game, even the one like the Tacoma games, are gonna give me heart attacks because someone's gonna drop points or gain points that they shouldn't have, and you're like, it's gonna be chaos. It's gonna be so fun, but chaos.
And I'm assuming we're gonna be back to normal years as far as the new normal, where player movement between MLS teams and MLS2 teams is not going to be as hampered as it was last year, for that here. So that is going to be an interesting. So I'm going to ask you this question here. Pro rel. If you could pick, because like I said, out of the 4 division games, 2 home, 2 away. What is one team that you would love to see in San Diego, and what's one team that you would love to go as an away fan?
Tampa Bay and San Diego, and away. Probably New York. So it could be
the
like
Red Bulls too, or
yeah. So it could be like, hey, what up, Alexi?
I'd rather go to Hartford if I'm going to go to the East Coast. It's an easier drive.
This is a good question. I'm not a huge like away day guy because it's either in the summertime and I just want to stay home, or it's during school time and I'm like, I can't travel for this weekend.
Because you're busy with band.
Yeah. I mean, shoot. Home, I would love, I don't care home or away. I would like to see how San Diego stacked up against Lou City.
Mm-hmm.
I think that would be a fun match. And I'd be all right with that being away. That might be a fun little away trip. Home, I don't know. I guess I got to agree Tampa Bay because it's a storied franchise. If we wear white, they're wearing some super crazy yellow, green.
The highlighter.
Right? Like just some fun
I don't
kit.
know that yet. I don't know if they've released their kits.
Yeah, some fun like hooped kit because it's always great. Like I love that yellow and green. I don't know why. I love it. It's unique. It's weird.
It's so dope.
It's just fun. It's like whatever. If their away jerseys are hooped yellow, green, like yeah, let's bring them out here. We'll wear our oranges. It'll be like a citrus salad on the field, and I love every minute of it.
Citrus salad.
I know for me, for away, there's 3. 1, San Diego, because we've never played San Diego. But the 2 in the East, I would love to go to Highmark Stadium with Pittsburgh, because I've heard that's an absolutely beautiful stadium.
Yeah.
And Charleston, just because of the history down there. When I was speaking to Kaler, with Legion FC and his podcast the other day, he mentioned going down to Birmingham, especially in the times that we're in, because the civil rights history. I guess they have a museum down there that's he's like, if you come down for the weekend, that's something that you have to experience. Just and it's something that he does every year. For that here. So like I said, for me, like I said here, Birmingham's a 13 hour drive from San Antonio. So I think, if given the opportunity, leaving late on a Friday, I think that would be a trip, that is drivable.
8 of those hours are still in Texas, right?
Yes. It is. Final thoughts. It's we here in San Antonio, you can leave the country quicker than you can get to another state, and it's 4 hours to leave the country.
30 minutes, I think, on a good day.
Yes, when I was in the Navy, Tijuana was very nice, even though we weren't supposed to go. So,
and it's like Tijuana, South, San Ysidro. It's cross border.
As long as you didn't get in trouble,
right?
Nobody said anything. Just don't get in trouble. Yeah. So, but final thoughts for you guys. We'll start with you, Chris, with the Loyal, and I know you and I are going to try to put something together for the Mountain Division coming up. Or I guess you're going to put something for the Mountain Division. I'm hoping to speak to you on New Mexico United on our side.
April. It'll be in April for sure.
In April for that here. But final thoughts from you.
Final thoughts from me. Phoenix sucks. Sorry.
It's not shocking from you.
Good. And it's a shout out to Michael Vanderplas. Anyways, final thoughts really just it's going to be a good season. I know that folks locally in San Diego are hoping that California can, or at least that area can get to a certain color so that they can fill the stands. Definitely want to see that happen for him. I am also wanting to see if a Tory Green kit rolls out here soon. That's a final thought that I have. What will they be wearing on the pitch?
For you, Alan, your final thoughts?
Banter, but banter kindly. We're all kind of getting out of junk. So enjoy your season. Embrace it. Don't get too low, but really enjoy those highs.
Oh, yeah.
Bam, 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 bam.
So my final thought, and this will probably be, at least for the next month or so, it's going to be about mental health, which is a serious issue. And I'm talking about men my age, mid 40s, along those lines here that, I'll admit I try to, say, hey, I can just power through it, overlook it. But unfortunately, we lost a family friend this week here that, we've tried getting him help, but, unfortunately it didn't work. So please be open to getting help. Like I said here, if you need somebody to talk to, you can always reach out to the National Suicide Prevention Lifeline. They provide free and confidential support for people in distress, prevention, and not only for you, if you're going through something, but also your loved one. So if you have if you see somebody that's going through something, reach out to them and maybe they can try to help the situation. But that's just something for me. I think kind of going through it's kind of shook me a little bit to a core to make sure that growing up, mental health had a stigma to it at the time. And it's great to see nowadays that stigma is going away. But, for, especially men my age, mid 40s, and older, it's something that, hey, we can just power through it because that's how we were raised. And, please be open to getting help. That's, don't leave behind family and stuff if you don't have to. So, but sorry to end on a downer, but like I said here, I think it is an important topic, and I know
it's not a downer.
No, well, it is for me. So, but it was definitely, an enjoyable conversation, Alan and Chris here, and hopefully we'll be able to get to do this in the season. But thank you for tuning in to tonight's United Soccer FC.